One thing people often don't talk about, here on this YouTube streets is you pursuing your goals and also paying your bills. See, this is one topic that's, I really don't see a lot online because, like I always say on my videos, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, videos about you chasing your dream, trying to make your dream work, your dream to make a lot of money from the business that you do, trying to make it work. And for most of us, the idea or the dream is that we are going to do our business, doesn't matter what it is. Some of us are content creators, some of us are resellers, having an online or e-commerce business. Some of us even have a brick and mortar shop. And the goal or the idea is that you want to be able to do whatever you are doing to be able to pay your way through life. Talking about your health insurance, your car notes, your phone bills, your mortgage, your whatever it is, your holiday trips. You want to be able to make a lot of money from the things that you do and not have to worry, every month or every day where are you going to get the next money from? And this could be a very major challenge. I'm not sitting here, trying to tell you that I have figured it out. This is something that we all, as self-employed people, entrepreneurs, have to deal with over and over and over again. And if you are out there, you have figured it out, I'm going to say lucky you, because even entrepreneurs who have spent years in this game, they're going to tell you the same thing, that yes, every month is different, every year is different. And sometimes we tend to hear a lot of videos just, telling you go all out, pursue your dreams, fight, grind on your goals. It doesn't matter what people are saying. When people are saying no, telling you it's not going to work, you have to be positive, keep pushing, keep pushing. All this, I'm not going to lie, they are very good, words of encouragement, trying to motivate you. Because if you don't have somebody cheering you up, there's every possibility that you will just sit back one day and say, you know what, I don't think this is working. I want to go do something else and throw away your goals. This is what you get if you do not get these videos. Of course, these videos are very, very helpful, trying to encourage you, go to the gym if you want to lose fat, if you want to build a business, you have to be seen grinding day and night, but then the problem is that some of these advice, they are, even though they are very, very relevant, but it doesn't address one of the major challenges that a lot of you, myself including, might have to pass through in the source of, pursuing your dreams or even your goals, to be self-sustaining through your business, through your creativity or stuff like that. One of that challenges, how do you continually, ensure that you pay your bills? Business is full of ups and downs. There are sometimes you're going to be balling, and other times it is what it is. Things are a little bit slow, especially when you are coming out from a major holiday like Christmas. You're just entering the new year. People are still trying to figure out things. People are still trying to see how much they will have to spend in the new year. And if you own a shop like myself, where you sell, refurbished IT hardwares, or even if you sell clothing and other stuff like that, gift items, you might be experiencing a situation where sales might generally be very low. This is not to say that the business you are running is a bad business, but it is just the character of the business. Every business has a special character. If you are into gardening services, I wouldn't know what it looks like in winter, but I want to imagine that when it's winter, nobody's really thinking about, mowing the lawns and stuff like that. And because of that, your clients may just not want to reach out to you. They want to wait until summer again, where things are going to be bubbling. And then you're going to have, a lot of clients. You're going to be busy. You're going to be having people calling you. And this is just what it is. It's typical with every kind of business. If you also are a content creator, you pretty much realize that in January, up to February, even longer, it's typical that views are kind of down. The RPM on your videos are kind of down because advertisers are not spending money at this time. But towards the beginning of, October, November, advertisers are spending money. Companies are beginning to hit their, advertising budget. And because of that, you realize that the RPM is just increasing. So the problem is, in those months where you do not have a lot of money flying around, how do you continue to sustain yourself? This is a major question. And this is one of the reasons I see over and over and again why people are forced out of their dreams or their goals. Or people start out, with building a very good business. Good idea, great ideas, of course. Every good idea might require time, might require a lot of dedication, a lot of consistency. a lot of sacrifice. And sometimes one of the sacrifice that you need to give for that new idea that you have is you have to spend a lot of time pretty much sitting down and trying to make it work. If you do not have a lot of upfront capital, then you have to put a lot of sweat equity, try to grind it out. Because if you don't have a lot of capital, you cannot outsource a lot of the processes, those processes that take a lot of time from you. If you're a content creator, one of the processes you might want to outsource is editing. And these editors, they are in cheap, man. They are in cheap. And if you don't have, the money or the reserve to bankroll that process, so what you see that you are going to be doing it yourself, you're going to be grinding out the videos yourself, spending time, because you will not be able to boast of taking up an editor that might want to charge you 160 euros per video. I'm talking about per 10 video, just one video, a well edited video. The editor might be asking for 160 euros, and it could be even more if you have a lot of, editing to do, a lot of transitions, graphic designs, effects, and stuff like that. But if you have just a basic video, perhaps you might be lucky or fortunate to find an editor that will not do it for 100 euros. And this is just one video. And if you want to create a lot of videos every week, which is pretty much what YouTube wants these days, then you might pretty much just realize that you're going to be spending a lot of money, which you do not have, because the business that you're trying to, build is not making that kind of money yet to bankroll that kind of, outsourcing. And because of that, you have to do it yourself, which is you have to pretty much sit down, figure out how you spend the limited time you have in doing that thing. It could be like you building an e-commerce brand that is already not making money, as it were, because like I said, every good thing, takes time. So you're going to be sitting down trying to make it work, but then your expenses are going to be mounting. Some of us have warehouses. Some of us have, cars that we've taken on financing. Some of us have, mortgages to pay. Some of us have a lot of expenses constantly staring at us. And the last thing you want to do is to leave these expenses and now begin to think of hiring an editor that also take a lot of money from you. So at the end of the day, the business you are trying to grind out, even though it's a functional business, is a very good business that works. But the thing is, the season you are right now, you are not making a lot of money yet to be able to, give out some of these tasks that's taking a lot of time from you. And because of that, you are having to pass through this stress. And this stress, like I said, is the major, killer of most dreams, the major killer of most, small business ideas, And the problem is, you might be grinding out these things. It takes time. The people around you are not seeing that it takes time, because if you are trying to break out of the normal, people are going to call you a lot of names. They're going to call you a dreamer, and it could be very, very challenging, given that whatever you are building is not bringing a lot of money on the table yet. Nobody's going to be able to see that something is happening behind the scene. It's going to be very, very challenging. And before you know it, a lot of people might just realize that, look, it's not working. I need to pay my bills. The bills are mounting. I do not know where the next income is going to come from. And if you're not fortunate to have somebody to act as a shock absorber in this time, you are left with one option, which is to go and take up a normal employment. And that begins, a new chapter in your life. Because if you take up a new role, that will mean that you have to give up the time, investments that business or that dream that you're trying to build is going to take. Because if you take up a new role now, perhaps you take up a 40 hours a week job, let's just say 8 hours a day. You have to commit to the job. So all and all, you have to spend like 10 or 12 hours a day doing that job. And if the job is a very, very physical one, you come home, you are spent, and before you know it, you'll not be able to, take on that goal, which also needs a lot of time investment from you. And sometimes you have to work additional 5 or 6 hours on that goal to actually be able to see a little bit of results. The problem that comes from this combination is that you go out there to do that job, all right? You come home, you are pretty much spent, and you do not have the mental bandwidth again to begin to sit down and commit to building a business, that will take another 5 hours from you. And don't forget, you still have to sleep. You still have to be normal the next day to go to that job. At the end of the day, most of these jobs that you will even find are not going to pay you a lot if you do not have the skills to attract a very high paying job. This is the major cycle, and I don't see a lot of people talking about this. But then if you have a shock absorber, some of you are so fortunate, you live with your parents, that's a very good thing that you have. But unfortunately, A lot of us do not see this blessing in disguise. The time that you have to still live with your parents, you are wasting it on doing irrelevant things. This would have been the time that you should use, double down your dream, because this benefit that you have is not going to last forever. There's going to come a time your parents are going to tell you, young man, I think it's time for you now to get busy with life. It's time to get serious. It's time to wake up from your dream, because I'm telling you, a lot of you guys will also have parents that will not believe in your dream, not because they do not love you, but just because in their generation, it wasn't a traditional thing to actually break away from the normal and try to be self-sustaining. They were also raised to believe that if you go through school, you actually have to get a job, you get married, you get kids, and your life just goes, beautifully thereafter. This is what they believe in. And sometimes when they are pushing you to get a job, get something real, it's not because they do not love you. This is the only thing that they know. Some of us, we have that benefit, living with your parents. But then what do you find? You are wasting that time, doing things that do not move the needle. I'm telling you, that one of the greatest benefit that you have. Live with your parents. You don't need to have any major expenses. Possibly the expense that you only have is just to pay for your phone, and you can actually have a lot of time, to do everything you want to do, to commit to your business, to commit to your dreams. And this is a very good place to be. But for some people, this might not always be the case. And for this group of people that do not have that possibility to live with their parents, or do not have a spouse that's able to support them in the time where they really need support in trying to get their dreams off the ground, trying to make the business that they are working on work, that could be a very major source of challenge. Like I said, I'm not saying I have figured this out. In fact, it's something that we constantly need to deal with. And sometimes when I take a look at YouTube, I can pretty much tell a content creator, that has a business that's passing through that situation of life. One of the major things that you see is inconsistency. You see, the business person makes content on the side. One thing that you tend to see is that sometimes they are online, some other time, 2-3 weeks, they are offline, trying to grind things out, trying to combine all these jobs, trying to still work on the business. And because of that, consistency is going to be lacking in their showing up online. This is what it is, and it's hard to, get through that phase. And some people call this phase the shitty phase, all right? And the problem is nobody is actually there to encourage you. You go online to take a look at the videos to encourage you. They do not really address this phase of life that I've just described now, which is that phase between you making your goals work and you having to pay your bills. They do not address it. And because of that, you watch these videos, you're frustrated. What is we talking about? Don't these people understand that there's a phase where the business is not bringing a lot of money and I do not have somebody to support me? And because of that, I have to take up an extra job. And taking up that job will mean that I will not have a lot of time. And because I do not have a lot of time, I still want to work on a business. I have to work extra hours. And if I have spouse and kids, I do not have to see my kids anymore. And before you know it, I have a problem with my wife or my partner. And before you know it, everything just gets out of control. You get burnt out. Boom, you have no drive more. You stop working on your goals. And before you know it, 2-3 years is gone and you have not done anything. This is a major challenge. But then the advice I have for you, given that I have also passed through that stage myself and constantly have to deal with that every time, is for you to actually be focused. Understand that it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of patience. Patience is one beautiful, skill that you can actually use to navigate, times like this. Patience, because if you try to force things, you might pretty much break things and you might have to regret a lot of things. In the time where people don't believe in you, in the time where it's very hard to see results, especially of the time that you are putting in, you need patience for it to work. A lot of you guys are actually doing the right thing. This is something I also have to make a video on, which is people doing the right thing, but the business is not just, taking shape yet, or whatever project they are working on is not actually taking off yet. You need patience in that time. See, sometimes if you want to rush things, you're going to be angry. You're going to be, kind of burnt out. You're going to begin to ask yourself, why is this thing not working? I'm putting a lot of work. I'm making a lot of sacrifices. Why is this thing not just working out the way I have heard on YouTube videos that if I grind a lot for 2-3 years, everything will just work out? I'm telling you, you need patience in this time. And when things like this begins to happen, you are caught up in that phase that everyone calls the shitty phase. you need patience to actually, walk through that phase without breaking things. Keep putting in the input. Whenever you have to refine the input that you're putting in, don't be scared to refine it. If you have to take up a job and have to, come home, sleep longer hours, yes, it is really the shitty phase. It's going to tell on your health, it's going to tell on your relationship. This is why it is called a shitty phase. With patience, you can actually navigate this phase, while doubling down on that which you want to achieve, refining the input, keep being positive, keep being hopeful that yes, it's going to work, especially when you see that this is something that actually works. For example, you have identified that, being a reseller is something that works, something that can pay your bills. You keep pushing, you keep seeing how you can get new products. If you have also identified that having a brick and mortar shop could be also something that can work. Yes, you might have to take up a new job. You might have to cut a lot of expenses. You keep pushing and refining things, and being hopeful that yes, one day you are going to hit your target. Of course, there's a time for you to reach out to people. There's a time for you to explain to the people around you that are meant to be your support system. It could be your parents, it could be your significant other, your wife, your partner, whatever, brothers or sisters. Explain to them, try to carry them along and tell them that, look, I understand that this phase might be a little bit stressful. It's the shitty phase. I'm putting a lot of input. I'm not seeing results yet, but I do not want to give up on my dreams. There might be times I have to work late. There might be times I have to be invisible. I will not be able to come for my son's football match. I won't be able to attend that wedding ceremony, that birthday ceremony. You being upfront to whoever is around you that is supposed to be part of this whole project is also something that's going to help you. Like I said, I'm not saying I figured it out, but I'm just saying that if you, embrace patience, you embrace, being focused in this time, you learn to embrace every phase, every season that you are currently in, you have a better chance to navigate this shitty phase. I hope this video helps you. If you have found value in it, please consider clicking on the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel as well. Until I see you again in the next one. Peace.